What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. If you thought repression in Russia was only about silencing activists, jailing opposition leaders, or crushing independent journalists, you're missing half, at least, of the story. The system has turned inward. The grand purge of the Russia's so-called new elite has quietly started behind the scenes, and even these soldiers are finally realizing the mistakes they've made by trusting the regime and signing up to fight the Putin's war. The machine that once rewarded loyalty and punished dissent now punishes everyone, including its own soldiers and yes-sayers. The people who built fortunes under Putin's umbrella, who believed in the unwritten promise that loyalty buys immunity, are now finding out that this promise has already expired long time ago. Ministers eliminate themselves, oligarchs are dragged from private jets, billionaires lose their empires overnight, and Putin does not even bother faking sympathy anymore. The message is loud and brutal. In today's Russia, you cannot die with dignity, you cannot live with dignity, and you definitely cannot expect protection from the master you already served. This is no longer about law, corruption, or even politics. This is about survival in a system that devours its own offspring and does not even choke on their bones. Let's get straight into it. Roman Starovoyt, a cabinet minister, waved goodbye to his world more than a month ago, but the most shocking part was not even his death. It was how little the Kremlin cared about their own Minister of Transport, a relatively big person in the Kremlin. In any normal dictatorship, funny to say those two words together, but okay, at least the performance of grief would have been staged. A statement of tragic loss, a speech, a 15-minute documentary midnight about his life and achievements, or at least a solemn note. But what did we get? Confusion, denial, and the bizarre spectacle of the Kremlin retracting stories about the funeral proceedings. RIA Novosti, the official news agency, reported that Putin had sent condolences. Hours later, the story was erased. Then Peskov himself stepped in to clarify, only for his words to vanish too. What was that all about? Since when does it matter whether Putin sent flowers? Well, clearly someone in the system wanted to hammer home a message. This man is not worth mourning. His service, his loyalty, his role, none of it counted. If you fall alone. That's the message sent to every other minister, governor or official. Don't expect even symbolic mercy if you're gone. Think about the contrast now. A decade ago, when opposition leader Boris Nemtsov was assassinated within sight of the Kremlin, Putin's government at least went through the motions of official condolences. Nemtsov was an enemy for them, but they still played the role. Today, a cabinet minister gets less respect than opposition figure once did. No words of grief, no protocol, nothing. Just a few replacement, a fast replacement, a PR circus about nothing in particular, and then expected silence. But the truth is obvious. Starovoyt did not just pull the trigger out of personal despair. He pulled it because the system had already discarded him. The moment he realized there was an open investigation about him and about the corruption and stealing of funds in the Kursk region, well, that was pretty much the end of him. That's a very classic way, by the way, of career-ending event in Russia. You cross the wrong man's path, or you don't share your money with the right people, and your death sentence comes in the form of a corruption investigation. Then there are only two possible endings for these people, which is either self-elimination or jail. Starovoyt's career, his wealth, his standing, they were all gone before the bullet. He saw the writing on the wall, and the Kremlin's cold shoulder only confirmed it. That is the treatment the government people of Russia receive from the very system that literally raised them. But what about more money-oriented people, the oligarchs? Are things any different for them? Let's talk about them in our next chapter. Enter Konstantin Strukov, the most typical Russian oligarch, a man who made his fortune in gold, built an empire in Chelyabinsk, joined United Russia political party, collected state honors, and never dared to step out of line. If you were to design the perfect loyalist billionaire, well, it would be him. And yet, his empire was seized. His company, Ural Zolota, worth nearly $1 billion in annual revenue, ripped out of his hands by court order. This was not some rogue dissent or rebellious tycoon like Oleg Tinkov, who openly mocked Putin and then fled abroad. Strukov was part of the family, a trusted player since the 1990s. But when bailiffs stormed his private jet and confiscated his passport as he tried to flee to Turkey, the message was unmistakable. Loyalty does not save you anymore. But why make even a show of it? Because this is not just about property redistribution. If it were, they could have just quietly transferred his gold mines to the Rotenbergs or another Kremlin-friendly clan, and that's it, the end of story. No, the humiliation itself was the part of the punishment. Strukov was not allowed to leave, was not allowed to fade into obscurity abroad, was not allowed even a shred of autonomy. His empire was taken, and his escape was staged as a public defeat. This signals a new stage in repression. You can show loyalty for decades, wear the right party badge, donate even to the war effort, and keep your mouth shut. But the day regime wants your assets, that's it, you're finished. Not only finished, but finished in a way that everyone else can see. A gold bar is worth more to Putin than the man who mined it, even if this friend was one of the best Putin's friends just a year ago. Must be nice to have such a caring and fair boss, right? Well, I guess those oligarchs knew who they were pledging their loyalty to more than 30 years ago then. A perfect example of signing a deal with the devil himself. Just put your signature here, receive billions, near unlimited power and influence, and well, it all might just disappear, you don't even know when or why. Would you guys take this deal? Okay, like mentioned previously a couple decades ago, only those people openly opposing Putin were in danger. So why did this grand purge start against literally everyone who is now remotely related to the Kremlin? Let's try to answer this question in our next chapter. Why this sudden brutality? Why humiliate and destroy the very people who keep the system running? The answer is fear. Putin no longer needs loyalty, he only needs obedience. And obedience rooted in fear is stronger than any sense of mutual benefit. For years, the unwritten contract was simple. Support the system, enrich yourself, stay silent, and you'll be safe. That contract, however, has now been torn apart. Now the elites understand that they can lose everything overnight. It does not matter if you're a minister, a governor, or a billionaire. You can be dragged from the mansion, slapped with 13-year sentence like Deputy Defense Minister Timur Ivanov, or just pushed towards self-elimination like Starovoyt. The immunity of status has evaporated. Being inside the system is now more dangerous than standing outside of it. At least critics like Tinkov got out and can now sip champagne on yachts abroad. But the loyalists, well, they can just get the cell doors and cold morgues instead. You just choose whatever you want. The system has mutated from a mafia of thieves into a gang of murderers. Once the disputes were about money, who got the contracts, who pocketed the profits, and who had to share with whom. Now the disputes are about survival. The life of a billionaire is worth no more than the life of a conscript. Ministers, oligarchs, and governors have been dragged down to the very same expendable level as frontline soldiers. The code of honor is gone, and well, there is no even code of honor among thieves, you know how the saying goes, right? The only code left is fear. This is the reversible transformation of Putin's Russia. War has consumed everything, including the rules of the elite club. Once Putin played the role of arbiter, balancing interests, rewarding allies, and keeping everyone fed. Well, now he just simply doesn't care. He does not need to keep his cronies happy. He does not need to pretend the system is stable. He only needs to keep it afraid. Fear has become the last currency. But rulers who base their governance on fear always have an expiration date. The question is, how much does Putin have left? If you're waiting for this to normalize once the war ends, well, that is not going to happen, highly unlikely. The repression of the elites is not a temporary measure, it is the new DNA of the regime. Putin has crossed the line of no return. He has no way back to the old system of balance, immunity, and compromise. I mean, just look at the pattern. Every round of repression is harsher than the previous one. Yesterday it was confiscating assets only. Today it's long prison terms. Tomorrow it might and most likely will be even worse. Each new case escalates the cruelty, ensuring that fear keeps pace with desperation. So losing all your wealth and spending a couple of years in prison might feel like just a lucky break now, like you just got away easy with just a slap on your wrist. It could be worse, those people think, I guess. This is cannibalism, plain and simple. The system is devouring itself. The elites who thought they were untouchable now understand that they're as disposable as the masses they exploited. The governors who manage mobilization and absorb drone strikes are now rewarded not with gratitude, but with handcuffs. The billionaires who financed regional budgets are not thanked, but they're now ruined. The ministers who showed loyalty for decades are not honored, but mocked even in death. And here lies the ultimate irony. The people who fled, those who dared to defy Putin openly, who cursed him from abroad, are now the ones who are actually safe from the ones who stayed. Tinkov may have lost billions, but he still has his yacht and his freedom, and most importantly his life. The ones who stayed to serve, to prove loyalty, are being fed into the grinder by literally Putin himself. If you are rich in Russia today, your best option is escape. Sell what you can, flee where you can, take whatever scraps of your fortune can fit inside the suitcase. Because the alternative is to wait until the knock on the door comes, until your gold mines, your mansions, your companies, your freedom are all gone. The old deal, wealth in exchange for silence, is dead. What remains is terror. The Kremlin does not just punish critics anymore, it punishes everyone. And that makes Russia's elite, once untouchable, the most vulnerable of all. So the lesson is brutally simple. In Putin's Russia, it does not matter how high you climb, because the fall is always waiting. In fact, if you think about it, the higher you climb, the deadlier is the fall, physically and metaphorically speaking. I'm sure you guys heard many stories of one-sided love between oligarchs and politicians, and open windows in high-rise buildings, and you all know how it all ends. The system does not protect its own anymore, it devours them. And if you're still inside that system, thinking you can outlast it or outsmart it, the truth is staring you in the face. You're not just part of the inner circle anymore, you're just prey waiting for one single hunter to spontaneously change his mind. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support our work and keep the Russian dude independent, there are links down below, for example my Patreon, where you can see the additional chapter at the end of each episode. Thanks so much for watching, see you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.